Thanks, Joe.
And you guys are started.
Very good. All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Please join me at looking at Craig Melton's screen for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, Amy, could you take attendance just to make sure? And I know that Councilor Choi had texted me. He's doing his doctoring this morning, so he won't be here.
Okay. President Garrett?
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilor Burke?
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Choi is not here. Councilor Culp? I see his name there.
I see him. Well, I don't know if we can count him if he can't speak.
That would be a yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, Joe. Councilor Melton?
Yes.
And Councilor Trailer?
Here.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Amy. Next up, we've got the approval of the memorandum of the January 4th, 2021 regular meeting. A copy has been posted. Unless there's any questions or comments on that, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second from Vice President Plunkett. Amy?
President Garrett?
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilor Burke?
Yes.
Councilor Culp?
Yes.
Councilor Melton?
Yes.
Councilor Trailer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. The memorandum of the January 4th, 2021 regular town council meeting is approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, we've got request to speak. Anyone wishing to raise their hand can
Yes.
push the raise hand icon. Let's see, we've got one.
There we go.
We've got two. All right, we will start with Mr. Triscari. Mr. Triscari, you are promoted, and I think you know the drill, but your name and address, and I'll start your clock 3 minutes after that point.
My name is Craig Triscari, 3270 Paddock Road. As of January 2021, Van Trust has still failed to run an 8-inch water line into Saratoga after the December 2018 rezoning passing requiring Van Trust to run the line when they set up their water. They have actually fire hydrants along the road now. We are at the 2-year plus mark from when the council approved their commitments. Van Trust has told this board they have 17 homes that signed for water over the amount they need to implement their failed commitment. They have told this board that they had homes on 400 that would be used for the easements to get the water into Saratoga. The community was told by the landowner this is false. They have committed to planting 8-foot trees, but instead planted 4 to 5 foot trees on the berms impacting the eastern side with Whitestown. They continue to fail, and so do you and this board and the town for Perry Township and Zionsville Rural. The town council a few months ago voted unanimously to give Van Trust millions of dollars in tax giveaways to include paying nothing the first year after opening. When does the opening timeline begin? When they get a client to rent? When they get final inspection, which may take several years? The last meeting, the president of this board stated he talked to Van Trust. They told him that Whitestown would sign a water plan by the end of January. That plan, according to Whitestown water director, was signed several months ago. But the community was informed that Van Trust had filed to secure easements needed to implement their plan. This goes against what the lawyers of Van Trust told this board and the planning board. They failed to secure what they promised. They have been speculative, and this board has allowed them to run rogue throughout this process. The president of this board said they will have water in this community by April. I have little to zero trust on what this board and the president has said, but plan to report out on it. End of February, we'll see if there is any movement, and come April, if we hit a quarter of a decade of failure, I believe that that is sufficient time for the town to start legal actions to enforce what they promise. You should have healthy debates on stopping this crony capitalism in this town. If you plan to buy a home in Zionsville, address be very cautious. The leadership doesn't abide by their comprehensive plan, and to date, they provided zero value for the greater rural community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Triscari. There's another speaker here, Mandrioli. If you are now up, you can give your name and address for the record in 3 minutes for your comments. You are currently on mute.
Is he possibly presenting today?
Maybe.
Yeah,
Mike, is that you? Mike Andrioli? Do you have a comment for the public comment section? You raised your hand.
I think I raised my hand in error. I apologize. I'm here for the zoning matter later, and so I have no comments on this matter. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll get you promoted at that point. Amy, I don't see any other hands raised. Amy, you're also on mute.
Yeah, I see no other hands raised.
All right, we will move on to the mayor administration update. Is there anything coming from there, Amy? Have you heard anything?
No, the mayor does not have any comments.
Okay, we'll move on to old business. Our only old business item is a consideration of an ordinance setting the town of Zionsville, Indiana fee schedule. This is a second reading. This is ordinance number 2020-21. Tammy and Jared, I've got listed here. Jared, maybe you were going to go over some of the proposed fee increases for the Parks Department, although I know that's not the only spot for the fee increases.
And I just promoted Jared. I don't see Tammy, however.
Okay, well, hopefully she shows up.
Yeah.
Jared, you're on your own here.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just share my screen over here. This is a presentation that I forwarded to the town council last week.
We've got it up.
All right. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the updates. I apologize last time for not having all the information in front of me, but I was able to collect that. So I just wanted to start and let everyone know that the Zionsville Nature Center and Parks Department was able to offer 230 programs last year, or 2019, sorry. So I think that's incredibly.
Oh, we're not going to read them all, but that is very impressive.
Yeah, not going to read them all this morning. But I just wanted to highlight, out of those 230 programs, 157 of them were free public programs. So it's a very small percentage of our programming that we actually do charge a fee for. And I just wanted to reiterate that the current fee schedule that we're using was established in 2014 to 2015. So that was over 5 years ago now. And talking about some of the changes to the fee schedule, obviously the largest was the separation of residents and non-residents. But within Zionsville, the public schools were to increase from $2 to $3 per student. And that is when they go to the Nature Center for a program. And this is to standardize the pricing for organized youth activities. Boy Scouts and private schools were both also $3. So we're just looking to standardize that when a group comes into the Nature Center. I also want to comment on this and say that the schools do have a fund in place for helping and assisting students to cover these costs as well. We spoke with the school CFO. And additionally, this fee is almost irrelevant anymore. It turns out it's much easier to just have a Zoom call with the Nature Center rather than work out the logistics of a bus ride or walking the kids over. So a lot of teachers opt out for that flat virtual programming fee. Also, our birthdays would increase from 125 to 150. And that's because as we move over to the library, instead of renting one portion of the Nature Center, they'll actually rent the entire Nature Center and still get the same quality of program. So that's just to cover a little bit more as we're allocating all of our resources to that party rather than the majority. Backyard Explorers increased from $45 to $60, And that's not really a fee increase as much as a change in service. We're actually adding a day of camp this year. So instead of Monday to Thursday, we will go Monday to Friday. Same for our day camps, going from $20 to $30. They were extended an hour each day. So instead of a 2-hour program, it's a 3-hour program for a week. And the only programs to be adjusted, for inflation and increased costs are the Biologist Boot Camp and Nature Center, or Nature Navigators. And those are both camps that went from $85 to $90. So if we look at the information comparing 2019 to 2021, based on the numbers of 2019, you'll see there's a difference of about $1,881. So really not an incredibly large amount in our increased funding, but what that does provide is, 180 hours of staff part-time that we could use for other programs or covering more supplies. And that's comprehensively across the board that we'd be able to offer more programming. The other additions to the fee schedule, we introduced reserving shelters. This isn't really a fee necessarily as a new service. So now residents will be able to actually reserve a public portion of the park and host their events, their parties, and their family get-togethers outdoors. There are some maintenance costs associated with that, as we will set up a sign notifying the public of the reserved space, and then also inspect afterwards to make sure there's no cleanup necessary. The special event trail use is, again, just trying to recover a little cost from maintenance. So as these special event groups come and use the trail, I would like to see signs on every entrance so that we can notify the public, if there's 600 people running down the rail trail, you're going to want to know it before you start your dog walk or something like that. So just being able to place all of those signs and also picking them up after an event would be an added increase to our maintenance demand. The memorial donations were more of just a standardization of what we would ask for in a donation for park benches or trees. And that's just to cover the price of the plaque and also the amenity, the park bench or tree. Dog park membership we've talked about, and that is a new service as well. But also considering everything about this year and the new dog park and just learning a lot of things along the way, we've offered a $25 discount onto the initial registration for any applications received in 2021. And I think that's a fair discount to give to the community as we all learn together on this new dog park. The reservable sports fields at Mulberry Fields, that's also a new service. Teams can still come in and write a contract with us for utilizing a portion of the field all year. But if a team or a pickup team just wants to occupy one of the fields for 4 hours or a day, they'll have that ability this year. And the park special event admission is really just a catch-all. If John Bon Jovi shows up and he wants to throw a concert in Zionsville, I just wanted to have the ability to set a price point for that. And this isn't really just best guess. All of our prices are based on something. There is this cost recovery philosophy I want to talk about briefly. This is kind of the standard that we'll use moving forward. So price or cost recovery is the degree to which our operational costs and our reinvestment initiatives are financially supported by user fees and other funding mechanisms. So what that means, kind of the philosophy behind this. So the general fund pays for our facilities and our primary staff. And then the staff create programs based on public interest. And that's what we've done over this past year. We've just completed our program report, so we know exactly what the public wants to have in their community. So as we create these programs and introduce these fees, those revenues collected will actually go right back into the program operations to keep expanding that. So it's a community-driven pyramid methodology. So the more benefit to our community the service has, the less cost we would want to recover. That's more of the amenity we would want to offer for free. So we're going to look at the bottom of the pyramid first, and you'll see parks, trails, and special events are at the bottom. That's because the entire community benefits from that. But as you go up the pyramid, you'll see that the opportunity or the service gets more and more specialized. So youth classes and athletics is the next tier. And as we go up, dog park memberships, they really only benefit people with dogs. Private events are only going to help or be a service to those that go to the event. And then golf, it's pretty much a one-person sport. Birthday parties are only going to be for those selected parties. So as it gets more and more specialized, we try to recover a different percentage of that cost. So as you look on this slide, as it benefits the entire community, it's a free service. But as we go up that pyramid, we try to retain a little bit of that cost to use back into the programs. That 125% you'll see at the top, you'll see golf is listed there. That's actually the benchmark that our golf course currently tries to operate on. And that's just to keep the doors open and, have a little money to start up next year. So it's really to create a sustainable department. And this ideology was actually identified in our local study here, the programming study of 2021 by Pros Consulting. So what I just showed you was kind of a national example. That was from Arlington Parks and Rec in Texas. And this is our local community consultant saying the exact same thing. So when we create a program, as we kind of discussed last time, there are costs associated with it. So there is an equation that factors in all of the fixed and variable costs and then divides that by demand, and we get our price point. So from that price point, we will subsidize that amount with what's identified on the pyramid. So if it's a youth sport and we work this equation, we find out the total's, $10. And then we go over to our pyramid and we see youth athletics is 50%. So we'll actually only charge $5 to the community. So that would kind of be the benchmark for our pricing. From there, we're actually looking at all ways we can reduce that financial impact to the community. So we do allocate funds every year from the general fund that support this programming, but also we're really going to try to go for a robust sponsorship program. I would love to be able to say to the community, this year's summer camp sponsored by insert corporation. So we're really going to try to go out in the community, and those that are able to give and sponsor programs, we're gonna try to find them out and help our community through that way, because it not only gives them brand recognition and advertising, but it also helps those that want to participate in these programs. I'll also be working with Tammy and the budget to develop a scholarship donation line and really advertise that. So those that have the ability to donate can also fund our program specifically. And then, like we said, creating those subsidy levels. And this is all just to make sure that our program is accessible to everyone in the neighborhood. And I think it is important to mention that we don't plan to charge for every single program. Just like right now, how we offered 157 programs for free, we still want to continue that legacy as well. But while we're growing as a park district, while we're building new amenities, we don't want to have to wait on our programs to catch up. We want to be able to grow that at the same time. So currently what we're able to offer is nature programming and special events. And we do those very well. And the public, every single time there's a waiting list for every program. But here's where we're trying to get. So we want to introduce outdoor fitness. We want to introduce more volunteer activities and outdoor water recreation. And if a community center comes on, we want to introduce indoor recreation as well. So this is all just preparing for that future growth that we're anticipating. So that was kind of the quick overview of the program. I did go into a little bit more detail at the most recent Parks Board meeting if you wanted to look into that. But the Parks Board did pass a resolution in support of both the 2021 fee schedule and kind of this philosophy moving forward.
Very good. Thanks, Jared. I think that pyramid makes sense as well, based on how you described it. Councilors, and I see Tammy now has joined us as well. Any questions for Jared for parks or broader for Tammy on fees?
Yeah, this is Councilor Culp. Jared, I did not get this presentation. So if you could pull it up real quick, I do have one quick question. And I'm trying to help you out here since I'm in the Parks and Rec conference room right now. So I'm trying to help you there.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
All right.
That'll be $42 though, Joe. So.
That'll be $42 now. Can you scroll back up to the top, please?
Yep.
And go to your pricing spreadsheet.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So quick question. Why are we charging public schools more than private schools on events?
On events. No, sorry. That's a bad heading. No. So we had 31 events last year for public schools.
Okay.
Whereas we only had 16.
So we are private schools are more. Okay. I was trying to read this as fast as I could, so apologize.
Yeah.
Joe, I just sent you the presentation. I just emailed it to you, so you've got it as well.
It is also available on the packet online.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Tammy, I had a couple questions. It says that the gun permits are a new fee structure. Could you explain what that is?
And I believe that is just taking the legislation and putting it into our fee schedule. So that's just to standardize the fees with what the statute says.
Got it. And the special events, I noticed that those fees have gone up, or there's a new fee schedule, I should say, for the special events. Do we have any sense of how that would impact an event? I mean, most of the special events where I see some of the services that you're talking about, whether it's no parking or cones or cops or EMTs, are things that seem to be, driving business downtown, chamber events. And I wanted to see what's the impact on those events with this new schedule. Take a fall festival. What's this going to cost the Lions Club versus what did it used to cost the Lions Club?
So before, I believe that they were paying for the police officers, which is the highest cost. And then the barricades, as you'll see, and the traffic cones, $2 a cone, $10 a barricade. So it's not going to be cost prohibitive for any organization.
Any idea what that means? I mean, have we taken an event like Fall Festival and run it through this new model, and it used to be $400 and now it's $420, or used to be $400 now it's $1,000? Do we know?
So Julie might be able to speak more to that special event. I know we did compare to other communities and things like that, as well as look at the costs from the town's perspective. But this is just to offset some of those costs. So let me see if I can get you a better answer real quick.
Hey, Julie's been promoted, not to put you on the spot, Julie, but you have been.
Yeah, sure. So Tammy is correct. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, good. Tammy is correct. It won't be cost prohibitive. So for example, for Lions Park, I can only think of a handful of barricades that might be used just for the duration of a parade, for example. The rest of, the event takes place in Lions Park, and they're utilizing their own equipment or rentals that they manage on their own. I'm a Lions member and can't think of anything else that we might use. Again, the highest fees are police and EMS services that are required for many of these events. The event organizer was paying these fees directly to the police or the firefighter, for example, that was attending these events and helping out because of liability issues and concerns that we had. All that's going to be invoiced through the town and set through a fee schedule that we're presenting here today.
So Julie, if I think of something like the Fall Festival parade, I mean, there's barricades running the whole length of that parade. That starts to add up. Am I missing something? I guess when I ask, like, what's the difference, and I'm told it's not cost prohibitive for different people means different things, right? For one person, it might be $10. I got a tight budget. For another, it might be $1,000. It's hard to vote on something without knowing the impact of the organizations that we're voting, oftentimes organizations that are benefiting the town.
Yeah, so certainly we can go and calculate how many barricades they might have requested in the past. I don't have that number for you. And I know, for example, when, other private events that are held, you can rent those barricades from Acreage, for example, or Ace Party Rental, I think. And so I'm not sure even if the barricades that you are seeing are all from the town or if they are actually being rented from a private vendor.
And Julie, the mayor supports these fees. Is that, Tammy had stated that, I believe, earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. She does. Yep.
So,
Julie, Brad, real quick.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Quick question. In the past, obviously, folks would, compensate those police officers, I think, individually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now that would be, I think it's probably best to kind of run it through the town. Does it change the fee at all, though? Or is it just more a matter of process and accountability?
I think it does increase the fee a little bit because we're factoring in all of our benefits as well as the time and a half that the officer or firefighter might receive. I think it might have been $30 an hour per officer. I don't have the data in front of me, but we are incorporating all the other fees and expenses that the town incurs to be able to provide employment and provide that officer for.
Yeah. As someone who, professionally has used the park and does multiple events, sometimes the cost for the police and the security is the largest out-of-pocket cost.
It absolutely is.
And so to Josh's point of, what's prohibitive, I think that's the largest ticket item that an organization would have to consider. So I hear you saying it's going up. I don't know what that, a couple bucks, $5, $10. Any sense there?
For what was going up again?
Well, assuming it used to be $30 per officer, do you have any what it would be now being charged through the town? Or
it should be included. I think it is on the fee schedule.
It is. It's labeled as $43 an hour, and the main reason that we needed to cover that in the fee schedule was because it offered for workers' compensation and things like that was not previously included in the normal paying the officer directly.
Okay, so it'd be about so technically it could be a $13 increase per hour of how many folks you needed to hire.
Correct.
All right.
Julie, are some events, I thought I remember this, some events considered town-supported events, in which case fees are waived, like Fall Festival or Brick Street Inn, like some of the big events I'm thinking of, this could be very impactful?
Yeah, so there was some language in the special event application about them being town-sponsored events, but I don't know if the fee schedule ever recognized that officially, number one. And then number two, if we want to, I think you need to probably spell it out in the fee schedule. If they truly are town-sponsored events, what does that mean? Are we going to cover 100% of the cost, 50% of the cost? I'm looking to Heather to maybe weigh in on what we might need to do if that's something we want to consider, waiving these fees, how we best handle that. And we need to be really specific to what that means. Because even if it was a town-sponsored event, going back to my chamber days, the chamber still paid the officers and the EMS directly for the time that they spent monitoring that event.
So, all right, and I guess one other thing, and this is just a personal comment I have, doesn't necessarily have to be how the council feels, but the one fee, I would like more detail on how it impacts some of our major events, because our major events are supported by our major organizations, whether it's the chambers, Julie, you talked about, or Lions Club, or community events that I don't want to be taking more money from just to take more money from. And I realize that's not the reason why, right? But I just want to understand, if we could take 2 or 3 sample events and say, hey, it used to cost them $1,000, this new fee structure costs them $1,050. All right, that's different than this new fee structure costs them $3,000. We just have to have a different discussion on that. I think the other one that I'm not comfortable with personally, this is just my statement, is the fees for the use of town hall. And I only say that because some of this council in the prior term, part of the reason for voting for a $10 million facility was to have it as a a building for community groups to come in and use it as a part of their organization. And as I go through there, I see, you know, there's a knitting club or a puzzle club or things like that. And it just seems weird to start charging them. I realize there is a wear and tear opportunity to that. And also I would sort of fully support the idea that if those groups are not respecting the space, that it's not a right, it's a privilege. So I personally would like to see perhaps fees like I've seen some of the other communities do, where if you are a non-Zionsville resident, a non-Zionsville organization, I have no problem with fees for that. Personally, I don't want to see fees going for our Zionsville folks. So Heather, I think one of the things at least I'm interested in is getting the dog park fee passed as quickly as possible, because I think people are anxious to use that. And I think it's ready to go, and I don't want to keep holding it up, waiting on other information. Is there a way, and again, with council support, that we can get just that passed? Will we still work on some of the nuances that seem to be lingering, or some of the questions that are still outstanding from this council?
Yeah, I think one of the things we could do is simply say, you know, that the council's making a motion to only approve the dog park fee. And I would include in that motion that you're not taking any action on the other fees. And the reason for that is we have a number of existing fees in our current ordinances. And I don't believe it's the intent, you know, to impact those fees in any way. Meaning, for example, we have a golf cart, you know, fee that we established a year or so ago. I don't think we want to, you know, eliminate that. So we just want to be careful in our motion to make sure that we're preserving all of our current fees. But you can go ahead and pull that out. We could pass that today. We could come back, and if we wanted to have, you know, a discussion on, you know, these fees individually or pull them out, I think we could do that at a later time. And if there was, you know, agreement, you could even vote it in a 3-step process, you know, in the first meeting, not to further delay the discussion. But that would be the way I would handle it. One of the things, you know, we could do is kind of go line by line. The danger in that is that we don't want to eliminate any current fees, you know, that we've already established. And so we would need to make sure that Tammy or someone else would say, this is the current fee. You could also amend, you know, the fees back to their, you know, existing fee rate, you know, and change the number. But again, there's a little bit of danger in that going line by line if we don't have very specific information to be able to do that. So if we're interested in moving the dog park, I would just pull that out specifically and then take no action on the remaining fees so that the, you know, the current ones stay in place.
That makes sense. And I'm not trying to end the discussion. If there's other questions councilors have or other statements councilors have, please use this time. I just sort of wanted to give a general direction I think we should head.
Councilman Craig Melton.
Yeah.
I just was curious, is there a place where the room sponsors are designated for how much they've spent and for how long? And the reason I ask that, is there a way that we could include that in this? And the reason I say that is if somebody wants to sponsor a room, they'll know that in 2 years it might be available and what that cost is. I just kind of associate a room sponsor with a room of the town hall. And I'm curious as to what that cost is and when it'll be available again. And is that basically a fee? I understand it's a sponsorship, but it also, you know, gives them the opportunity to use that room at no cost. So just, does that make sense, that question? Can we add that to this? Is that not necessary?
Councilor Melton, I just a few minutes ago sent you some of that information about the rooms that are currently sponsored and what they've paid to sponsor. So that gives you a little bit of that information.
Yeah, I know that originally when the town created those sponsorships, there was individual agreements for each of those individual sponsors that dictated the terms of their sponsorship. The higher fees, obviously, or the higher sponsorship cost was for the larger rooms. It was sort of based on square footage. of the room itself. So I know the town holds agreements with each of these folks. I would not include it in the fee schedule. I think that may make it very confusing because the sponsorship is simply to allow them to put their branding in the room. I do know that we may have to revisit some of those agreements if, for example, the physical space were to change and that room, would be changed in some way. And that would be a, separate discussion. But I do see that different than fees to use a room. Should you adopt a fee to use a room, just because you're allowing the branding for that particular company to go on the wall for people who do come in, it's an advertising opportunity for them. Julie, did you have something to add? I didn't want to cut you off.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
I did also have a quick note from Captain Kleiken, just to sort of, there's a question on the police fees. He stated that the police prior fee was $40 and that was directly to the officers. So now it goes through the town, and it makes sense with some of the insurance that gets. He also noted that nonprofit organizations are not assessed the $100 day charge for the use of public property, and that the town supports the following events at no charge to the event sponsor. There's 5 events. It's Brick Street Market, 4th of July at Lions Park, Street Dance, Fall Festival Parade, and Christmas in the Village. Those 5 things may be things that we actually want to put in the fee schedule. Heather, I don't know if that makes sense or not. We don't have to legislate here on the meeting, but just if we continue that or do it as a separate ordinance for the next meeting, it may be a way to make sure that, I think those are the 5 big events that I was thinking of, but I just want to make sure we aren't walloping with sort of an unintentional new fee schedule for them. But if they're kind of excluded in some way, then it kind of reduces my concern.
You may want to consider simply stating, that the town council in conjunction with the mayor may approve, a list of events on an annual basis that, will be given, in which the fees will be waived. That would give you and the mayor the flexibility to, make an assessment on a year-to-year basis, as well as, be in a position to be nimble if, for example, there's, a community event, that is something that's not in that list that you want to come back and amend. But you could certainly, have a public discussion of those. And I think you have in the past had some discussion about, certain events that the town wanted to sponsor in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, that makes sense. Jared, just to ask you one more quick question again, since we're on second reading for this ordinance and we can make amendments, if we just pass the dog park thing now, we kind of have to start over, which is not that big of a deal. Is the dog park ready to go? Like if we pass this today, can people be out there in a couple of days? Or if we delay the whole thing until next meeting with a few tweaks here to the schedule, is that going to have an impact on people wanting to get out and play with their dogs?
Absolutely, yeah. I was really hoping for a February 1 opening, which would kind of require today.
Okay, all right. Well, then I don't have a problem with that. Councilors, any other questions on this?
I just think the I appreciate the dialogue and the conversation around all of it, and I would just, Jared, I think the presentation that you gave for the parks was great. I like the idea of the sponsorships, and I think from my perspective, I look at the information regarding sponsorships for the rooms at town hall and understanding the fees are to help with cleaning and that kind of stuff. I kind of lean towards Josh's statement that it's important that we keep an eye on who's in there and what the room looks like, and make sure that people are responsible. I just would go back to my initial stance that in a pandemic year, my appetite for fee increases and new fees is just not there.
Very good. So what I would like to do is make a motion to approve the dog park fee today, and also note that in that motion we are not taking action on any existing fees, with the idea that we can go back and readdress the remaining proposed fee schedule at our next meeting without impacting our current fees. That was a darn long motion, but Heather, did I get that right for what I think I'm intending to do here? Any second, and you can just say second. You don't have to second the whole long statement.
I'll second that. It's Brad.
Second from Councilor Burke. Okay, Amy, can you roll call that one?
Yes. President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
No.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
Councilor Trailer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. That long motion that I hope not to repeat passes by a vote of 5 in favor, 1 opposed. So Julie, we'll bring this back up at our next meeting just to talk through the remainder of it and just talk through those nuances of those meetings and, I'm sorry, those special events and how we want to handle that. It gives us a little time on that without delaying the important ones so that Jared can open his dog park.
Thank you.
Hey, Josh,
that was ordinance.
is there a procedural, is that fine procedurally, or were you having to back that out as another first reading and now we need to streamline that through?
Yeah, what we'll do is, so that was ordinance 20-21. We'll have to have, I believe, a second ordinance, which we'll have to introduce. But if we feel like it, we can do a 3-step process in the next meeting to not delay it further.
Right.
It'll just be an amended, amended ordinance. It'll be a different ordinance at that point.
Okay.
Very good. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it. Next up is new business. We've got a consideration of appointments to various committees and a building corporation. If you remember, we did this last meeting as well. This was some of the final appointments that we had to make, and appreciate those counselors that reached out with some names. So we were just filling in a few gaps here. I know Councilor Melton had sent in a name. All those names were, and background was, well, the names were provided. So any questions on that? Should be pretty straightforward. If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second from Vice President Plunkett. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
Councilor Trailer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Appointments are approved with a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, we've got a consideration of an ordinance to amend the Town of Zionsville zoning ordinance. This is petition number 2020-49-CA. This is Sela Capital LLC. This is ordinance number 2021-01. I've got Mr. DeLong and Mr. Andrioli here. Either of you, the floor is yours.
Certainly happy to introduce this matter and certainly turn it over to Mr. Andrioli to take it from here. But this matter, you've handled a petition like this a few times. This is an amendment to a set of commitments that was generated by the Area Plan Commission in the town of Whitestown. Therefore, statutorily, that obligation falls to the town council because of that unique relationship. Any questions? I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, let Mr. Andrioli take it from here.
All right, Mr. Andrioli, the floor is yours. Right now, we're seeing your screen shared, but just seeing the Zoom login. We also cannot hear you. Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
All right, there. Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, my name is Mike Andrioli, 1393 West Oak Street. This matter comes to you on a motion for modification of prior commitments. And it comes to you with a unanimous favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. Initially, I represent Sila Capital. Jeff Reesner is a Zionsville resident who's one of the principals of Sila Capital. Early on in the process, he met with the mayor's office to discuss the particular modification of amendments, which in essence will allow him to move forward with the development plan approval for 179 unit multifamily project consisting of 3 buildings on 9+ acres there just north of Royal Run and essentially south of the Get-Go traffic station. There's a 9-acre tract in there that is currently undeveloped, and my client proposes to develop it with this particular use. Early on in the process, he met with the mayor's office to talk about removing these commitments and in order to move forward with this particular project. In addition, before we had a public hearing in front of the Plan Commission, Councilor Melton was very instrumental and helpful in allowing us to have meetings with the Royal Run board, and then a further community meeting that was held by Zoom with the Royal Run residents out there, as they were the ones that would, given the fact they have single family homes, would be particularly impacted on their south boundary lines.
Hey, Mike, are you trying to present anything? Because all we see right now is a Zoom page that you're presenting.
I'm sorry?
Are you trying to present something? Because all we see right now is a Zoom login screen. I don't know if there's something you're presenting, or if you don't need to present, you can stop presenting and we can just all look at each other.
I can't.
Now we see your desktop. Thought there wasn't anything bad up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't, for some reason, I'm not logging in, but remember, you know, I was first around when the first computer was enacted, and I haven't really learned much from that. So
no problem. Joe, are you able to stop the presentation from Mr.
Sure.
Andreoli if there's nothing to present?
You bet.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Andreoli. I just Joe will take care of it in the background. Feel free to continue. Mike, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you, sir. In addition, we had community meetings with the Royal Run residents, as I mentioned. One of the unusual steps that we took with regard to this particular project, I'm happy to answer any questions, is thank you, very, very good. I'm at least sharing a screen at this particular point so I can see everybody. One of the things that we did, knowing that the Royal residents would be concerned if we remove restrictions, exactly what they were going to get on that site, we essentially spent the time, effort, and money to master plan the site, come up with renderings of the building, come up with the actual site plan, fencing, landscaping, and all of those things were generally put in a statement of commitments that we made pursuant to the recommendation that came to you from the Plan Commission. Those commitments have been signed by the owner. I have them in hand. And to the extent that the town council moves forward and approves this modification, then we will move forward with those commitments and come in with the development plan approval. We did a traffic study and other studies commensurate with what you'd normally see at the development plan level, but we wanted to make sure that we fully vetted the project as best we could before we brought it to the Plan Commission and on to the town council, at least at this stage. As I mentioned, there is a substantial stage that would be left for us to move forward, and that would be development plan approval in front of the Plan Commission, and we're well on our way to that, given the fact that the traffic study has been done, completed, and recommendations have been made. So we know where we stand with regard to the improvements that will necessarily be made out in that area. So I want to thank Mr. McDonald, the president of Royal Run, and Mr. Melton for helping organize our meetings with the Royal Run folks. And they were very helpful, informative, and several of the things that they had mentioned found their way into these written commitments that were part of the approval process. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike. Councilors, any questions for Mike or Wayne on this? Craig, go ahead.
Yes, I have a couple questions. I'm looking at the ordinance, and it states that the zoning commitments in ordinance 2009-05 encompasses 12.301 acres. And what we're talking about today is 9.295 acres. I don't understand why there's a difference between the acreage. And I'd like an explanation on that, please. Either Mike.
Yes, if I may, Councilor Melton, the original acreage that was owned out there that appeared in the deed was 12 plus acres. Some of that land has now been sold to Get-Go. It's still owned by the same owner. So the actual deed that they held, what was the original deed that showed proof of ownership was 12 plus acres. The 9.295 acre site is what is left, excluding road improvements and the Get-Go station. So there's nothing nefarious about it at all. There's no extra ground in there to be used or developed. The only remaining parcel to develop in that area based upon the original 12 acres is the 9.295 acres that appears in the commitments.
Great, thank you. Mr. Andreoli, would on this, it says miscellaneous provisions that were included as the governing commercial development. There was outside storage refuse, loading berths, and mechanical equipment. Is your applicant interested in retaining those commitments for this development?
No, the only commitment that we were seeking to modify or change, Mr. Melton, was the commitment as it relates to multifamily units. All of the other restrictions, and there were a mountain boatload full of restrictions on that general business classification. We're not seeking to modify or change any of those restrictions whatsoever, just the restriction that would allow us to move forward with the 179 unit multifamily development. All other restrictions, to the extent that they will not be modified by this ordinance, will remain as part of the restrictive commitments for that site.
Great, thank you very much.
Hey, Craig, I might ask you a question. How was the meeting with your neighbors well run around this project?
So I went door to door one day, and I met with about 3 residents that were contiguous to this, or adjoining this property, and there was definitely some pushback initially. But what happened to this area about a year and a half, about 2 years ago, was I believe it was Country Mark Co-op came through, and there's a gas easement right behind all of these folks. Country Mark came in and they cleared all of their easement out. So trees, bushes, everything down to the grass. So I think that was their preparation for a potential of this now farm ground to develop. They got to understand and see, these trees that were there were actually in an easement controlled by Country Mark. And once those were gone, it kind of left this opportunity for this development to come in. And that's, to answer your question, Mr. President, essentially change is always hard. And I feel that the Country Mark coming in and ground clearing was a big change for these residents. But I think what we've been able to understand is that this developer, I believe, is going to have some strong commitments with berming, trees, and fencing, and the majority of the constituents as well as residents that are going to be impacted, we're welcoming some of those nice commitments, and that was the trade-off essentially. A few years ago, it got cleared. Now, if the development comes in, they were worried about lighting. It was definitely one. So lighting, berming, blinding with a fence and trees. And those are really the primary important factors that my residents and my constituents were most fearful of, actually. So overall, I think the development was an acceptable development by my neighbors and the residents.
Mr. Garrett, may I elaborate slightly further on that as well?
Please.
One of the things that we did, given the substantial site plan that was prepared, there were a number of things put on the site plan with regard to fencing, landscaping, mounding, tree plantings, commitments to size of trees, types of trees, those types of things, all went into the request as part of our request coming to you to remove these restrictions. And they now take the form of actual written commitments. So our commitment is that we have to substantially comply with the site plan that was presented to the Plan Commission, which is extremely detailed as it relates to land, mounding, fencing, and those types of things. And I think that was a big reason why we had no remonstrance to the petition at the Plan Commission level, because we had made those commitments, including the height of trees and height of moundings. For instance, we had indicated perhaps the mounding might be 4 to 6 feet. Mr. Melton said he'd prefer to have it 6 feet and have a commitment to that. So we did. And those types of things and those type of collaborative efforts, I think, went a long way to making sure that this went smoothly in front of the Plan Commission. And this will really be a quality development and will go, I think, help with site distances as the people coming up Oxford Drive. As Mr. Melton indicated, there are no trees along that area now, and as it relates to the Country Mark easement. There is going to be substantial reforestation of that area with this particular site plan that will give, we think, the residents that live along our border a substantial relief from lights and sound and those types of things moving forward in the future.
Very good. Thank you for that additional information, Mike.
Hey, Josh, have I seen, and maybe I just missed it, I just went back through everything in my box. Are there more details in terms of schematics for this, an overview, a look at what the proposed project might look like?
So we don't have this isn't the plan, right? This is one of the steps towards the plan, and Mike may correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is really just clearing the way. If you look at the ordinance itself, it's really just to amend the ordinance to allow some current regulations on there to be changed so that they can then go through and file the site plan with the Planning Commission.
To answer Mr. Burke's question, if I may, there is a detailed site plan, Brad, that has been submitted, and that was submitted as part of the Plan Commission as part of their approval process, that we have to substantially comply with it. The details such as where is the drainage, we're going to have offsite retention, those kinds of details will come with the next step at the development plan process. But the actual site plan, in particular, where the buildings are going to be located, where the road cuts are, the landscaping, the fencing, the parking areas, the three buildings as opposed to more buildings, all of those things we substantially committed to, and we will have to come forward with a development plan substantially in compliance with that, or the Plan Commission will not allow us to go forward and we'll be in violation of our commitments. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and Jason says that maybe we do have that in our packet, so I'm going to take another look, but appreciate that as usual.
All right, councils, any other questions? Well, we've got Mr. Andreoli and Mr. DeLong here. Or any motions on this? Everyone's being shy, so I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-01. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Vice President Plunkett. Thank you, Jason. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
and Councilor Trailer.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-01 is adopted with a vote of 6 in favor, 0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks, Wayne. Last for new business, we've got a consideration of a resolution authorizing the conveyance of an easement. This is Zionsville Community Schools Building Corporation. This is resolution 2021-01. Mr. Lance, I believe you are the sacrificial lamb for this one.
Is happy to introduce this and answer any questions you may have. The school is coming to you seeking a utility and landscape easement along the western property line of our property out on 875 East. This is probably more familiar to you as the Rail Trail Gardens location. It is just south of Heritage Trail Park. As the school is developing their new elementary site, there's to the north of their property where they share a property line with us. It gets very tight. And so they're asking for a 40-foot easement off of town property across which they can bring utilities into the site and provide some landscaping. I'm happy to pull up a picture because nothing, I don't think, in the packet you were provided. Those are just line sort of geometric drawings. I don't know if that's really a great reference. Happy to pull anything up or answer any questions you may want to have.
Counselors, any questions on this? Lance, I assume town is supportive of this request for the schools.
Town has no objection. It's the use of our property, but it's for a good project, and we support the schools and partner with them.
Okay, thank you. What's the downside of this then?
It would be speculative at best. Obviously, losing a 40-foot easement along a property line really doesn't impact the developability of the site in the future for the town because it's kind of our setback anyway. We wouldn't be building right up to a property line. So at this point, really, it's hard to tell if there are any true limitations to our property. At some point, we may want to bring a drive in the future, but it's entirely speculative at this point, and I wouldn't see any adverse impacts.
If it was 30 foot versus 40 foot, would that make any difference?
10 feet, but no, I don't think that. And I wasn't making light of that because what I'm trying to think of is, well, how does that correspond to a setback limitation? So I don't think 30 to 40 feet would be a significant change.
How many more uncomfortable questions do you think I can ask? I can keep going.
Well, we're kind of wrapping things up here. So the sun has come out. So it's a beautiful morning.
Do they need all 40 feet? That's a lot.
Yeah, they are required to provide buffering landscape. So by the time you get utilities in a corridor, you don't want trees directly on top of some utilities. So they deemed this 40-foot necessary to get both their landscape plan installed in a fashion that doesn't conflict with their underground utilities.
Got it. Yeah, Craig, go ahead.
Is there any, in the future, is there any possibility that we need to use this for that access or access to our property? Is the first question. Can we put a driveway over this utilities easement in the future?
Yeah, I don't believe that this is a limiting use easement, an exclusive use easement. We could traverse this in the future. We would not be putting anything parallel to this easement. We would be crossing like that if we ever put in a future drive.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Councilors, any other questions on this? No? Any motions on this? I've made all the motions. I'd like to share it, but
make a motion to approve.
I've got a first.
Second.
Councilor Trailer, second from Councilor Melton. What? Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
and Councilor Trailer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 2021-01 passes with a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. I do not have any other matters. Councilors, any other matters to bring up today in this meeting? All right, we have claims, and actually we have 2 claims. If you remember, we didn't get to claims last time. So we've got approval of the 2020 claims first, and then approval of 2021 claims so far second. Those will be 2 different votes. So we'll start with approval of 2020 claims. Any questions on those claims? No, the team's been promoted. Have we got any? Jason?
I've got excuse me, a couple of questions on really 2020 and 2021. Just for a point of clarification, on page 2 of the 2020 claims, there's a line item for $304,000 to be transferred into the general fund. And that was for, I'm assuming, Tammy, that lines up with the CARES Act expenses that we detailed in November, December, or towards the end of the year. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. So that references the resolution that was passed that says that per the State Board of Accounts that we can do the alternate way of booking the expenses of the CARES Act. So as part of that resolution, it stated that we can transfer money into the general fund and then use that. We did an additional appropriation for the financial system, human resources system, and things like that out of that. And so that aligns with that, as well as the expenses that were not booked directly into the CARES Act Grant Fund 150. And then 523,000 of the public safety lit, the local income tax fund. We are transferring the expense that was already spent out of that fund up to the grant fund so that it's a wash, right? We received revenue in for the CARES Act, and then the expenses will come out of that grant fund for the public safety, police and fire expenses to alleviate the pressure on the public safety lit fund for future years. So it'll free up that cash balance. So our total CARES Act revenue that we received in 2020 was $880,946.
Okay. The other two questions that I have on the claims, and I appreciate the explanation there. In the last few months, we've had card statements that showed expenses on both claims and then expenses on the cards that were voted on. I didn't see those on either the 2020 or the 2021. Were those?
And I'm happy to send that out separately, as some counselors noted that it was a little bit confusing to see it and they thought that it might be double counted. So anyone that would like those, please send me an email and I will send those to you directly.
Okay, so those, I guess.
Those are all included. They are all included in the claims that you are seeing today on that PDF. So all of the cards are on that sheet. And you'll see it as Chase.
Okay, so whenever we see Chase on there, that means those are the cards.
Yes, those are the purchase cards, absolutely.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have is just about the Fund 003. Can you tell me what Fund 003 is? It says Town Council.
So can you tell me what page you're on?
Well, I'd made notes on let me pull the claims up here.
Is it a department?
Amy, I think it's page 4.
Of the 2020 or 2021?
I know on 2020, it's page 4.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are department numbers, and those I don't believe are categorized accurately in the current system. As we move towards the new system, those will be cleaned up and the departments will actually be reflective of the activity that's going on there. So that is just the historical, how it was entered into the system. So for instance, the account code should be fund department object. So 201 is the fund number. Fund 201 is MBH. And then the 003, you'll see that it's not always, like if you look down a little bit where it says Fund 207 fire operating, it says mayor, right? So it's not, ignore the department codes. So it tells you that it's stormwater department, that division on the line information. So that's part of the reason why we're cleaning up the chart of accounts which is setting the fund departments and objects so that it'll be more understandable for council, for the public internally as well.
Yeah, I think for purposes of just kind of, I guess, going on record, I think it's important to note that if anyone were to pull claims and see Fund 003 as town council, that the town council did not spend $102,801 on various stormwater fees and Facebook posts.
Correct.
When will that all be cleaned up, Tammy?
Our go live date is currently in April. So by that time, and we will go back to January so that you'll have a full year of all the information and reporting and things like that. So I would say by end of April, we'll have reporting that will show all the information that you're looking for.
Vice President Plunkett, any other questions?
No, I think that's, I certainly look forward to the new reporting system and software.
Yes.
Yes, we all do. So we've got the outstanding item of approval of 2020 claims. Any other questions, councilors? Any motions?
I'd make a motion to approve 2020 claims.
Okay, go to first President Plunkett, the second Councilor Burke. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
and Councilor Trailer.
Yes, Brian?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. Year-end 2020 claims are approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. As I mentioned, we also have approval of 2021 claims. Any questions on 2021 claims or any motions? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I just beat you, Jason.
That's good.
Got a second, Councilor Culp. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
Councilor Trailer.
Yes.
Thank you.
January 2021 claims are approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. We'll also make
President,
yes.
Can I just have 1 moment? So on the chart of accounts, we actually did go in and modify that for 2021. So when you look at the 2021 claims and down through the year, it will be the new department and objects. And then we're going to map some of the fund numbers to the State Board of Accounts, what they should be. But we're using the existing fund numbers here, but we'll have it all mapped out and everything. But the departments are correct in 2021. Thank you.
With that, I will make a motion to approve. I'm sorry, motion to approve. Motion to adjourn. I also approve Tammy's statement.
Second.
Second, Councilor Trailer. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
Councilor Melton,
Yes.
Councilor Trailer.
Yes.
All right. Motion to adjourn approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 1st, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. Determination of the need for a solely electronic meeting will be evaluated prior to the meeting, and final notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana open door law. Have a good rest of the week.